Now here's a guy is at 50%. You gotta bet the now here's a guy.
Yes.
How is that not 100%? Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Johnny Montalbano, and this is another edition, episode 100 of Moving the Goalposts. You can follow us across social media at MTGPETB. You can follow the Empty the Bench Network at ETB Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart and Johnny at Montalbano NY. You can watch all Empty the Bench shows on YouTube.com/ETB Network. And you can listen to Moving the Goalposts wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure to like and subscribe.
Hey, before we get started, can I just say one thing? Can I just say congratulations to you mainly because you're the one that started this show on making it to 100 shows. It doesn't matter. I mean, making it to 100 episodes is no easy feat. I mean, that's 2 years plus of doing a podcast. So congratulations to you.
Thank
and
you.
I say that because you're the one that started this. I came along over the last little bit here.
I've had multiple different hosts. I'm a little bit like the Jalen Hurts of podcast hosts. I'm just going through multiple.
Well, hopefully I can be of some assistance for a while here. I know my schedule's about to get very wacky here too over the coming weeks. So, but I'm happy to be with you, and congratulations to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know how long the average podcast lasts, but I know it's less than 100 episodes.
Well, and think about it, this is not an everyday show. This is a once a week show that also gets the holiday break. So this is a big deal. It's not like, why are we celebrating 100? It's because it's a once a week show for 2 years. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. So congratulations. On Super Bowl week, no less, we celebrate this. But
exactly. And you know what else we can celebrate? Some people that I hate not getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, what a crazy last week it was with these two. Belichick last week, and now Robert Kraft we learned on Tuesday. So go ahead.
So the way I see it is that, look, I hate defending Belichick because I don't like Belichick. I'm a Jet fan. No Jet fan likes Bill Belichick. However, the Hall of Fame, who gets in as a first ballot Hall of Famer, should have nothing to do with who I don't or don't like. That has nothing to do with who's a Hall of Famer. I'm not a Hall of Fame voter. And the way I see it is that if Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, I don't know who is. I'm not saying Bill Belichick is indisputably the best coach in NFL history, but he's got to be top 5. And, there's no reason. Here, my issue with this is that there's no logical reason for an NFL Hall of Fame vote, for a football Hall of Fame voter, because it's not the NFL, it's football, right? For a Hall of Fame voter to not vote for Belichick in the first ballot, other than personal reasons or pettiness. And that's an issue that I have. Now, it's a thing in baseball with like steroid guys and things like, or Kurt Schilling not being allowed in because of his political views, his outspoken political views. And to me, that whole thing is stupid because I'm somebody who is a fan. I am not an expert. I'm not qualified to be a Hall of Fame voter, but even I can put my biases aside and say, okay, this is stupid. Why is it okay why am I able to put my biases aside while Hall of Fame voters aren't able to do that? Like, are you really that petty that you're going to pretend that Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer? I mean, that whole thing is freaking ridiculous.
I totally agree. I mean, there's one word when describing this situation with Belichick, and it's a trickle-down effect, and we saw it on Tuesday with Robert Kraft not making it, and it'll probably continue going down towards Tom Brady unless some things change there. And that's bias. And that's a very dangerous word when it comes to talking about voters and the Hall of Fame. And it's a word really that unfortunately seems to be used in multiple ways for multiple situations that it should not be involved in, whether it's the Hall of Fame, whether it's talking about the news where you can talk about these news channels that have a bias towards reporting, which, we won't get into here, but there definitely is. And unfortunately, it kind of, makes the Hall of Fame, it dishevels it a bit. I mean, it's a very disappointing thing. I mean, we saw that, like you said, in baseball with the steroids or, with Derek Jeter being one vote shy of being a unanimous Hall of Famer. Now we've seen it here. There is no other reason than bias as to why these two are not in. Belichick not in first ballot. You want to say that it's because of Deflategate that you're trying to punish him for that, which I think is a very stupid way to punish him for something like that. Or you want to say it's because of how he was towards the media, which he really was towards the media was just not giving you answers. That was like he was almost like no different than what Marshawn Lynch was like. I mean, that he just showed he didn't really talk to the media. He just showed up just so he wouldn't get fined.
Or like Popovich.
And if you look at the NBA, I mean, Popovich was very outspoken, and we know that right now Steve Kerr is very outspoken about his views on things that aren't basketball related. But unfortunately, now it seems like the voters now it's a very disappointing thing. Look, I'm a Giants fan. Obviously, we're celebrating the anniversary this week of beating the Patriots twice. I respect the heck out of them, though, because what they've done is remarkable. I say the same thing when it comes to the Eagles. How many times have you heard me say on this show or on Football Forecast here on the ETV network that I can't stand the Eagles, but I respect the heck out of them because I think they have the best GM in the sport. I can't stand them, but I always put my biases aside when talking about other teams in that regard. But the fact that you have Hall of Fame voters that clearly have a bias, and look, I know that there have been a couple of them that have come out in the past week and have written pieces as to why they did not vote for Belichick. I appreciate that they're not hiding behind it, which is pretty cool. I mean, eventually, if most of them come out and explain and say that they did, we'll find out which ones did not. But you can have all the explanation in the world, but bias has got to be the reason, because there's no other reason to keep Belichick out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Wait, which Hall of Fame voters didn't vote for Belichick?
Well, I know there was two that came out on social media that wrote pieces. Now, I don't know there was more, but I've only seen two. I'll get them for you in just a second here. I know I put them out on my Twitter account at Montalbano NY, but there were a couple that have come out in the past week explaining why they did not. I think it was somebody from like the Kansas City Star that did not, and there was one other one that I know of at least, and this was as of Tuesday. So let me pull that up here while I talk to you
one of them was a guy named Vahe Gregorian.
Yes, that's the guy from the I believe it's the Kansas City Star.
Yes. And he said, well, how does it work with Hall of Fame votes? Are they only allowed to vote for certain numbers, for a limited number of people?
Well, I don't know how that is in the NFL. I know I think in Major League Baseball, I thought there was like a limit of like up to 10 they could go for. If I know correctly, I don't know what the deal is with the NFL.
Okay, so here was his reason. He used his vote on senior candidates like Ken Anderson, Roger Craig, and L.C. Greenwood, and it was not because of Spygate or Deflategate, but to prioritize the senior candidates who might otherwise never get in. That's actually the best reason to not vote for Belichick.
I guess. And I guess by that,
I mean, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that's the most reasonable.
And again, I don't know I don't know what the truth is on how many people they could vote for. But if that makes it sound like you can only vote for so many people in 1 year.
Yeah. But I mean,
it sounds legitimate. I mean,
I also don't agree. I think that you should.
But also, I've never heard anybody ever say that they prioritize senior candidates before they vote before this group.
That's a good point.
So
that's also a good point.
But I appreciate that they did come out, because we could see a lot of these guys say, "Well, I don't have to explain why." He did come out and say.
No, and you're right. None of them do have to explain why. Although when you make an outlandish decision like that, I mean, the public would appreciate you a lot more if you explain why. And here's my thing with, and by the way, that in and of itself is also a form of bias. Like, that's not in any way an objective way of looking at who should be a first ballot Hall of Famer and who shouldn't. Like saying, well, Ken Anderson might never get in, therefore I'm going to vote for him over Belichick in the first ballot. I mean, come on. Like that does seem a little ridiculous. Now, I will say I am not as outraged about this as some other people are, because in the grand scheme of things, it really just doesn't matter because Belichick is going to get in anyway. And there's a whole lot of like we see it in baseball all the time, right? Where like some voters will just never vote for anybody in the first ballot. Like there are some Hall of Fame voters in baseball that will do that. They will just, for some weird reason, they think nobody should get in the first ballot. I don't know why. They have some weird traditionalist view, but if that's your view, why even have a first ballot? That doesn't even make sense. But I think in this case, I don't care that much because he's going to get in anyway, and eventually this will kind of die down. Look, I think Mike Piazza should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he wasn't because he played in the steroid era. I think it's a similar kind of thing here with Belichick. But you were talking about bias. And here's my thing. Bias is not inherently bad. All human beings operate on bias on some level. My issue is when the bias causes you to lie to yourself and to everybody else when it comes to like something like Hall of Fame voting. When your bias leads you to just lying to yourself, that's a little bit of an issue because you can be as biased as you want. I'm as biased as anybody against Belichick. But I would still sit here and say it's ridiculous for him not to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Both those things can still be true.
Yes. There is another one I remember I put out on Montalbano Wine the last week. Mike Chappelle voted. I wrote a piece on Fox59.com that he said, I voted for Robert Kraft, not against Bill Belichick. So there's another show, and I
think I think is ridiculous because Robert Kraft. I mean, look, Robert Kraft is just an owner. Like, if I have a choice between voting for a good owner and arguably the best head coach in history, I would vote for one of the greatest head coaches in history.
Mm-hmm.
Like owners being in the Hall of Fame. Like, I don't know. I'm not a big believer in.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Jones would get in if he's not already. I mean, Jerry Jones would be in, even though in the last 30 years he's had the most mid team in all of football, and you can almost even say in all of sports. But what he's done with how valuable that franchise would be a reason why in itself. But yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, so that's really just the issue, and also, like the way and you were talking about like Spygate and Deflategate. The answer for Spygate and Deflategate was to handle it at the time and punish them accordingly, not to keep Bill Belichick out of the Hall of Fame for a ballot. Like, to me, that just has nothing to do with anything. Like, is that really supposed to be a punishment for Belichick for cheating, for Spygate and Deflategate? That really just makes no sense to me.
I know, I agree. I'm just thinking that could be the only other reasons why you would do it as some sort of punishment, because you didn't really do it at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just it's crazy. They'll eventually get in. But like you said, I think Mike Piazza was a great one too, because we all remember. I remember at the time saying, "Oh, he's definitely going to get in first ballot," and he didn't get in first ballot because of the whole steroid era, and that's a whole different sport and a whole different thing where people who are playing in that time are almost like treated as guilty until proven innocent instead of what it really should be. But
right. Yeah, well, my view is that steroid users should be able to get in if they're it's one thing if there's a guy whose numbers are kind of on the cusp, and because he's a steroid user, he doesn't get in. I understand that. But for Barry Bonds to not get into the Hall of Fame, for A-Rod not to get into the Hall of Fame, these guys are Hall of Famers without steroids, regardless. A whole lot of guys were using steroids at the time. Most of them weren't great players. So the way I see it is that somebody like Barry Bonds absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame. And the way I see it is that if the Hall of Fame doesn't allow in Barry Bonds and Pete Rose, which I know they're letting him in now, but only after he died.
Yeah, they waited, of course, until after he died, of course, yeah.
Which to me is just petty.
Oh, yeah.
The way I see it is that if you're not letting in the greatest players ever because of some character flaws that they had, to me, the Hall of Fame is a joke.
Well, and it is, because why did David Ortiz get in?
Exactly, because he's a bubbly personality.
Well, and that's exactly why he got in. I remember at the time I was on a show and I said that the reason why he got in was because he was very media friendly. Barry Bonds was not media friendly. People didn't like the media didn't like A-Rod.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like Kurt Schilling. I mean, Kurt Schilling is a Hall of Famer. I can't stand what he talks about, but that is what. But what he goes on these shows and talks about is why he's kept out of the Hall of Fame.
Which is completely ridiculous, and
it should be kept totally separate from your stuff on the field.
But also, it's like, are baseball writers so biased? Like, this is not even something that has anything to do with baseball. At least in Belichick's case, everybody who hates him for football reasons. In Kurt Schilling's case, they hate him for non-baseball reasons.
Well, I mean, that's, but it almost does tie in hand where we're having a conversation really about the voters.
Yeah.
And like what is the deal with the voters? And that's as a bias. It's a bias thing because, like you said, it's bias, but in different forms of bias too. It's the bias about the player. It's a bias about what they say and do, and else. So it's creating really a situation where down the road we're going to create the situation where we're not going to put people in the Hall of Fame because of stuff they either say. Which, look, it's stupid, but it's not the worst thing in the world. They could say. It's one thing to say stupid things. It's another thing if you do stuff criminally, like we know with like Ray Lewis, like with that situation. And
he's in the Hall of Fame.
He's in the Hall of Fame. So I mean,
there's a pretty credible murder allegation against Ray Lewis. I mean, there was a very credible rape allegation against Kobe. I mean, I'm not saying I know for a fact either of them are true, but I mean, if you're going to look at character flaws and things you don't like about guys, it's like. And not letting him into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, look, we could spend almost the whole episode just on this, and obviously the NFL honors will have this. Well, obviously we'll have the class just after we actually premiere this show on Thursday. So, I can't watch the honor show because it's on too late anyway. It's what is it, like?
And I don't like watching honor shows anyway. I can go on Twitter and see all the highlights.
Yeah, and I could wake up Friday morning or just before I sit down to do the show Friday and see all the award winners and just go from there.
Yeah.
So, so we'll see. It's been a crazy couple of weeks here for the Hall of Fame talk, and it's kind of taking it away from the Super Bowl on Sunday.
Well, the thing with the Super Bowl is that every year it's 2 weeks from the championship games until the Super Bowl. There's not. What are you going to do? Talk about the Super Bowl for 2 weeks and break the game down?
I can tell you right now. I take a 2-week break from all the TV shows and stuff because they bring on 20 to 30 people throughout the week, and they start getting into topics that are absolutely insane. Like I stumbled across this on Twitter on Tuesday. They were talking about that if Sam Darnold wins the Super Bowl, and maybe we'll probably talk about this on Friday. If Sam Darnold wins the Super Bowl, do we consider him an elite quarterback?
Yeah. I would consider him.
I'm just up and I'm like, that's the conversations that we're having.
Yeah,
show.
First of all, who defines elite?
But I also say this too, though, Nick D, and eventually you will experience one of these. If your team is actually in the game, it's such a different feeling than you're watching like these two teams from the outside, not being a fan. I'm not a fan of either team. I'll watch the game. I'll hope by accident it's better than last year's game, which I thought was the worst one I've ever watched in my 35 years on this planet. And I can say that as somebody who watched Super Bowl 35 and the Ravens killed us. I remember the one at MetLife Stadium. That one was pretty ugly too. But the one last year from start to finish, add in the anthem, add in the halftime show, add in the commercials, was the worst game I ever watched.
Yeah. No, I can't say I disagree. I'm
hoping by accident this one's going to be better, but we'll talk about that in a little while.
It almost certainly will because that one was so bad that the floor is so low from last year's Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with, first of all, you want to talk about Sam Darnold is an elite quarterback, whether he wins the Super Bowl or not. I mean, this season, at least, I would say he was elite. He was a top 10 quarterback this year. He had a great year. I mean, I would say he was elite.
Well, think about it. Also, he's the only him and Brady are the only two quarterbacks in NFL history to win 14 games in back-to-back years.
Yeah. So how can you say that?
Sam doing something right to be doing that?
Well, exactly. So he's obviously doing something right. I'm not saying he's the best quarterback in the league or anything, but I would certainly think of him as being elite this year and last year too. He was elite both. He wasn't elite with the Jets, but he was certainly elite these past couple of years. So yes, whether he wins the Super Bowl or not, I mean, look. Dak Prescott's an elite quarterback too. He didn't make the playoffs, so sure. Like,
and that's not his fault.
Yeah, no, not at all. And by the way, you know what I couldn't stand? I couldn't stand when people had this meme of CJ Stroud after he got, and memes don't usually bother me, but memes do bother me sometimes when they're not based in reality. And most memes are based in reality. This one makes no sense. There was a picture of CJ Stroud and they had like his helmet off and it was a picture of Dak Prescott. And I was like, that makes no sense at all. If anything, the meme should be reversed. If Dak Prescott plays a bad game, it's a picture of CJ Stroud.
Oh,
Dak Prescott is good.
Like, oh my God. If Dak was on that, if Dak was on that Texans team, they would have won 15-2 this year in the regular season.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, why are you? I mean, Dak Prescott was an MVP candidate this year, and I've never seen Dak Prescott play as bad as CJ Stroud has through this entire playoffs. That doesn't make any sense. Why are you insulting him by comparing him to a better player? That's so stupid.
I can't stand the Cowboys, you know that, but come on, even I'm smart enough to know that we're not stupid enough to realize that that's ridiculous. I mean, Dak's unbelievable. I actually feel bad for him because the reason why the Cowboys can never get over the edge is because of their owner GM that doesn't realize that he is the problem, but he just doesn't see that.
But like the weird thing about Cowboys quarterbacks is that they always end up getting like these bad raps for it was the same thing with Romo. Like Romo was a very good player. He was a very good player, but because he was a Cowboys quarterback, he kind of developed like this reputation for not being good. But that wasn't true. Romo was a very good player.
Romo was very good. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even say great. Of course, people want to all they think about probably is the botched field goal snap in the game against the Seahawks, which I've seen a million times over the last couple of weeks. But I mean, that doesn't take away from how great he was. And also, they would like to go after Romo because of his broadcasting stuff, which I think is also ludicrous. But again, that's a topic.
I think Romo's a good broadcaster.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Really, get a little crazy, absolutely. But it's fine.
All right, wait.
You go try and do that.
Can we talk about Steve Tisch? He was named in the Epstein files.
Yeah.
So this could be, first of all, I don't know how is he the majority owner of the Giants? Isn't it John Mara? Isn't he the main guy?
Mara is, yeah. Okay. I'll tell you, this was a Friday night. You want to talk about a Friday night news dump?
Yeah.
I'm gonna gig at one of my bands, and I'm looking at, and then I look in between sets and stuff, and I see, that our Slack channel is blowing up with stuff, and I'm like, wait, what's going on here? I'm at a gig, and I'm like, all right, listen, I have to focus on the gig, but you want to talk about an old Friday night news dump between Tisch, and let's also just be fair though too about this. I'm not taking anything away, but there was more than just him that was on this list. Yeah. I mean, the fact that a lot of us are focusing just on the Giants owner in this, and I'm not saying this just as a Giants fan because this is terrible if this is all accurate, but there was more than just him that was in this list. I mean, there was Woody Johnson was involved.
I wish people focus more on Woody Johnson. I hope he gets to sell the team.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, now look, I mean, I don't want to go to that extreme where it's like, you're rooting for him to be involved because then he'd be forced to sell the team. Look, if they're going to sell the team just because he wants to sell. You don't want anything criminal or anything like this.
No. I'm not saying that. I just hope he sells the team out of pressure. No, I'm hoping for the best case scenario, which is he didn't do anything criminal, but he sells the team out of pressure, which, by the way, I think is not a good thing to root for either, because then you're rooting for mob justice.
Yeah, no, but I've always told people, like, if you root, and that's why you have to be careful when you talk about owners, like you want your owners to sell the team. It's so easy to say that, but my response to all that is, well, the only way they're going to sell the team is A, they get if they're sick, and you don't root for that, or B, they get involved in some sort of scandal or some sort of criminal activity, and you don't want that either. So
I guess the best case scenario would be like a Donald Sterling case where he just says some really stupid things and has to sell the team.
Well, and that's also because you had an NBA commissioner that was his first test, and he aced it with flying colors, and it's gone downhill ever since then. That was a strong thing that Adam Silver came out, and that was literally like almost right after he took over from David Stern. That was his first real test, and he aced it with flying colors. Now, look, the NFL came out with a statement saying that obviously they got to let the investigation play itself out, which they do, and that's what we all have to do. I mean, I think we have to really be careful about talking about it this early on about the whole selling bit, because we don't know all of this. I'll be honest with you, I don't know all about this. I mean, this happened the same night that I had one of my gigs. I'll be honest with you, I was not paying attention. So
right.
But look, this list obviously has been a big deal for a while now, outside of sports, even obviously in the political world, which we won't get into here. But this has been obviously a big deal for a while now because of the names that are attached to the list and stuff like that. So, when a football when it gets to the NFL and gets to a local level, like from the Jets or Giants side, which we both root for, obviously we're going to pay very close attention to it, especially also because there's not much else going on locally in terms of sports wise. So yes.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I will say, to be fair, the problem with these Epstein list leaks is that the headlines all say that somebody is named in the Epstein files without any context to it. Like Russell Wilson was in the Epstein files too, because he apparently wanted to buy a private jet or something like that, and his name was in the Epstein files. He had nothing to do with Epstein. His name was just in the files.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is that, like, just because somebody had an association with Epstein doesn't mean they did anything wrong or criminal. I mean, look, a lot of rich, very wealthy business people probably had relationships with Epstein on some level. That doesn't necessarily surprise me. I mean, the Steve Tisch stuff, it's like, yeah, I read some of the emails. It's really, really weird to have Epstein as a wingman. It's also really weird to be communicating about these types of things through email. That's also super strange. But as far as like Steve Tisch having an association with Epstein, as weird as I feel about it, we don't know for sure if he actually did anything wrong or heinous or criminal or anything like that, as far as we know, outside of just associating with the wrong guy.
Correct.
So I want to be fair about it too. I don't want to just say, well, he has a link with Epstein. Well, what did he do wrong? Like, I want to prove that, because I kind of believe in innocent until proven guilty. And also, part of me feels like the people who would really get into the most trouble, their names are redacted. I kind of think that too, with the way this Epstein list has been released. You're almost better off if you were involved in something heinous with Epstein than if you were just associating with him, because those are the names that are getting released, the people who were just associating with him.
Well, yeah, and I think also the biggest names on the list, like the biggest names on it. I mean, obviously, when you have, at the time, a very powerful businessman now also running the country on that list. I mean, they're going to obviously look into it. But like you said, unfortunately, I think this is another situation where I feel like we're living like in a guilty until proven innocent thing. Now, with the NFL, this is a situation the NFL has had, whether it's been, people off the field running criminal stuff or whatnot. This has always been a red flag for the NFL. They haven't handled really these, like whether it's domestic violence situations or any other criminal activity. And again, we don't know the full details about all this, but that's the NFL always seems to get a red light about get elevated in all this because of their history when it comes to handling domestic violence situations. So
yeah, and
not that I'm saying that these are the same. I'm just talking about like from the criminal aspect. That seems to be maybe the one thing that I think Goodell has not done a good job with is that whole thing. Now, again, we don't know all the details, and that's what obviously he said in his State of the League thing on earlier this week on Monday. So, yes.
I agree, but I would also have to say that, like, you're right. The NFL has not handled domestic violence very well. Neither has any other professional sports league. They don't really handle anything criminal. None of the leagues really handle any of this stuff very well. Like, there's no shortage of domestic abusers in baseball. I mean, that I don't know of any in basketball that I can think of.
Hockey actually does a pretty good job with it, and the reason why is because you very rarely hear anything in hockey about it, and it's not.
Well, that doesn't mean they do a good. That could just mean they do a good job covering it up.
Well, no, I think also because their penalties are a bit harsher than, say, some of the other leagues. I mean, we've spoken about how the NFL doesn't come down hard enough. Baseball doesn't come down hard enough. I mean, how do you get a 25-game suspension if on your first thing about this? I mean, but obviously it has to be something that's collectively bargained. But I would think that if you want to have a very strong stance on stopping domestic violence or criminal stuff, you need to come down strong right out of the gate.
Right.
So
no, I kind of agree. Like, I think you should. It's not that I disagree that they probably should come down stronger on domestic violence. All of these leagues, possibly. Hockey, I don't know. I don't really follow hockey at all, so I don't really know. But I would also say that you also have to remember it also has to be negotiated with the players' union. And baseball has the most powerful players' union. I mean, they're the only sport without a salary cap. Yeah. So, and the players' union will never agree to it. Whole different discussion.
But, we spoke about that last week, and that's why there will be a lockout after this year. So we know how bad it is. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's a balance, because a lot of times when it comes to these types of things, everybody wants to only focus on the punishment side for somebody who is guilty, and I don't disagree with that. I also think there has to be a strong defense for somebody. Now, it's not a legal defense; it's in professional sports, but there also needs to be a strong defense from players' unions to represent their players. I think there is a certain level of balance that there needs to be when it comes to how professional sports leagues handle personal conduct. And the way I see it is that sometimes I think the legal system does a worse job than the sports leagues do relative to expectations. That's also another thing that sometimes when athletes walk free after domestic violence, people get more mad at the sports leagues than they do at the legal system. Yeah. Like Greg Hardy, what Greg Hardy did to his ex-girlfriend was horrible. But it's like, but people were more mad at the NFL than the fact that he wasn't in jail. You can't play in the NFL if he was in jail. Yeah. Like, sometimes I think people's priorities just are a little misplaced.
They don't look at the human side of the victim versus they only look at the sports side of it, like that he's not going to, he's only suspended for such and such a time. They forget that there was actually a victim in
right.
Same thing like with Ray Rice and stuff. Absolutely, yeah.
And it's also not there. It's also just never the employer is never the primary punisher of somebody who does something wrong. That's never really the case. Like, if anything, it's the legal system. Like, the NFL can't convict somebody. Like, so like, I don't really, it's like with the NBA with the gambling scandal that people are saying. It's like, they don't have the resources that the FBI has. Like, the FBI has virtually unlimited resources. Like, the NBA, they can only do so much, even though it's within their own league.
Yeah, you're right.
Speaking of the NBA, the trade deadline is coming up in 2 days. Actually, by the time the show airs, I think
it will have passed. But when we air this, it's Thursday at 3 p.m. This show's premiering Thursday night. Son of a bitch. Yeah, unfortunately, we've had a couple of deals on Tuesday. So, but I will tell you, obviously, the big name that's being floated around obviously is Giannis. Now, Nick D, I don't know if you know this. I think you do, but in case you don't, of all the teams that I root for, the Knicks are my number one team. And that's even before the Giants.
I didn't know that. I was surprised. No, not only did I not know that, I was surprised to know that.
Yeah, the first jersey that I ever owned was a Knicks jersey. Back in '94, I owned a John Starks Knicks jersey, which was obviously much smaller for me because I was a little baby boy when that happened.
Was this before his Game 7 performance?
Yes. Yeah, it was. I was actually 93 was the first. I was 3 years old. That was the first year I got into sports. Was 93.
That's young.
Well, yeah, 90. Well, I can thank my dad. Rest in peace. I love you, miss you every day.
My first jersey was a Jose Reyes jersey. You want to talk about domestic violence?
Wow. Yeah. Oh, geez. But yeah, so I bring that up because there's been a lot of rumblings about Giannis being dealt by the deadline, and we don't know. Obviously, he could be dealt by the time where this show airs, and it could not. And the clear choice people are talking about is Giannis going to the Knicks. I like him a lot. I hope the Knicks don't pull the trigger though for him, and I'll tell you why. I actually hope the Knicks don't make any moves and hopefully they do not make a move by the time the show comes out. I think the roster, the way it is right now, is constructed so well. I wouldn't mess with it. And you know what? They're starting to play really well again. Look, they hit a little bit of a slump for a couple of weeks. That's going to happen over an 82-game season. So everybody was panicking over how they were playing lately. Well, you know what? Now they've rattled off 6 in a row. Their defense has been outstanding. I think this roster is as deep as it is. The one thing that does concern me a bit is the coaching, but I truly think that this team, which has the best free agent signing in New York sports, I would say, with Jalen Brunson. I mean, you cannot underestimate how great that signing was. I think that they can make a very, very deep run. I think they could make the finals. And you know what? There's probably no more favorable path for them to get there because of all the injuries to star players on other teams even before the season started. So why would I mess with success? The last time it felt like this, now it didn't feel like this when they back in 2011, but with the roster that they were constructing, and they went out there and made the trade for Melo, and gave up so many pieces for him. That's kind of where I feel like right now we would be going down in terms of making that move for Giannis. Now, that's not to say that Giannis wouldn't succeed here, but the chemistry angle, the depth on this team would be tested if they got him.
That's always a little bit of a concern. The chemistry side of when Kevin Durant first went to the Warriors, they started off kind of slow because they didn't really have the best chemistry. It took some time to gel. That's a little bit of a concern. In terms of the Knicks making the finals with this roster, I mean, sure, I think they can because the East kind of sucks. I mean, the only team better than the Knicks right now is the Pistons. And the Pistons are a very young team. And sometimes when teams are very young, like the Rockets last year, and they're great in the regular season, that doesn't always translate to the postseason. So that certainly could be the case. That being said, I don't think the Knicks have a championship caliber roster right now. I don't think they have a championship caliber roster. I think coaching is a little bit of a concern, but also your two best players being Cat and Brunson. Cat is having a little bit of a down year. The problem I have with Cat and Brunson as being your two best players is that neither of them play good defense. And Cat in big games and big spots gets into a lot of foul trouble, as we saw in the playoffs. And in some games was just really, really bad. And to the point where Thibodeau actually had to bench him. I think it was against the Pacers in one of those games. So I'm not convinced that the Knicks have a championship caliber roster. I think they're a little closer this year than they were last year, but I think that might say more about their competition. The problem with Mike Brown's system is that it doesn't fit Cat's play style very well. It's much more run and gun. Cat's the second best player on the team, and he moves kind of slow. He's a typical big man. I don't think it really fits the type of player that he is. I think Giannis would complement Brunson's play style a lot more than Cat would, than Towns. And my thing is, I'm not saying I'd be willing to give up everything and anything for Giannis. Your team could be worse if you give up too much, obviously. But I'd be willing to give up a lot of pieces for Giannis. I mean, I can live without Cat. I can look, he's a very, very good player, but look, he's not having a very good year. I can live without Miles. I can live without Mikal Bridges. I can live without Josh Hart. I'd be willing to trade those pieces if it means we can get Giannis. The biggest issue that the Knicks have is that the draft picks that they used for Mikal Bridges, which I still think was the right move. The problem is that a lot of those draft picks could have been used to get Giannis. And Mikal Bridges is good in some big spots, but there were some times like against the Pacers where he just was terrible. The problem with Bridges is that he's just very streaky. We need him to be able to hit outside shots at certain points, and we just really can't count on him all the time.
See, you hit the nail on the head also as to why I wouldn't pull the trigger for Giannis, because last year before they had all that draft capital. Now they don't have as much of it, and now they'd be talking about you be having to get into this roster and take some pieces off this roster to go get Giannis. Like you said, probably a Hart, who I like a lot, is a very valuable role player on this team, and OG Anunoby, who I think is also very, very valuable. These role players, as we've learned in recent years in the NBA, or even really in all years, really, these role players have a very valuable role, no pun intended, as the stars do. The stars are great. You need a star. I mean, every team that's won a championship seems to have at least one, if not two. But your role players also need to be there as well. I mean, even in LeBron's run, even in Jordan's runs back in the day, even heck in the Warriors run. I know they had Curry, they had Klay Thompson, they had obviously Durant for one or two of those titles. But there's those other pieces too. But there's also those other guys too, like a Draymond Green who was great defensively. There was, an Iguodala who could hit you a shot, a 3-pointer off the bench. There were those other guys too, those valuable guys. I think the Knicks have some of those, and I'm worried that they would have to give up some of those to get Giannis, and we would almost be in a very similar situation like we were with Carmelo back in 2011, where we had Carmelo and we had Amari Stoudemire, and you can even say Tyson Chandler as your third big guy, but you didn't really have enough other pieces on that team. And also, what was the thing that a lot of people were complaining about with Thibodeau is that he didn't play a deep roster. He would only play 7 or 8 guys. I think this team is valuable enough where they have a 9th or 10th guy that could step in also and give those starters some minutes off that you need, because I feel like they would start to fade down the stretch, and that could be the one thing. I think the only way the Knicks really could not make a deep run is if they do something by themselves, meaning that, like a Brunson tires out or gets hurt. And we've seen how he's avoided some of the major injuries, but he's been banged up early on in the season. So that's why as great as Giannis is, and I like him a lot, I just don't know if I could risk this during this season. And I get that the Eastern Conference is not a deep conference this year because of injuries and stuff, but I just don't know if I can break up the roster that I have right now. You want to do that in the off season? I understand. I could see it in the off season doing that. I just don't know if I could break up this roster and then they have to learn a whole new thing in a very short period of time. That would be my concern. If they had all the draft capital like they had before the Bridges trade, you make it. I mean, you build up all those draft picks for a reason, for a move like that. But because you used a good chunk of it on Bridges, I don't know if you want to be doing that again for Giannis. And then also because they're going to ask for some NBA players on your roster right now, too.
Well, I think it depends on what they give up. And like I said, with these certain role players, I think we forget. And I think the reason that people often blamed Thibodeau for not playing a deep enough roster without ever considering the fact that he didn't have a very deep roster. I mean, that's a big part of it too. But the biggest problem with the Knicks last year, and calling it a problem is a little ridiculous. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They had the best season they had in 25 years. Oh, yeah. And people are all mad about it. All right. But if you were to say there's a problem, a lot of it was the problem was the role players in that series. I mean, if you look at the role players that you were saying, which they are important, I don't disagree. The role players in that series against the Pacers that essentially got Tom Thibodeau fired, Josh Hart, Bridges, Mikal Bridges, and Brunson, and also
Anunoby.
They had terrible series. Mikal Bridges shot terribly against the Pacers. Josh Hart couldn't stop turning the ball over, and Josh Hart is he's a bit of an unusual player because he's like a shooting guard who rebounds really well. He's like a power forward, but is 6 inches too short. If you look at the type of player that he is, he's a guard without any of the essential skills that guards need. He's a guard that can't shoot very well from the outside. Sure, it's great that he can get a bunch of rebounds, but he's a guard. I don't know. I think Josh Hart's a little overrated. I can live without him. I'd be willing to trade him to get Giannis. And that's the thing, is that these role players, if they play like they did last year, the Knicks aren't going to a championship. If the Knicks play in the conference championship game, assuming they play the Pistons, which is a likely outcome, they're not making the championship this year either. So, I'd be okay with trading. Now, I'm not saying in any scenario I'd be willing to give up anything for Giannis, but I think this roster needs a little bit of a I don't think this is a championship caliber roster, and I would be in favor of changing it a little bit. I just don't think this roster is that good. I think it's very good for the regular season. I think in the playoffs, it will catch up to them.
The only thing with that, though, too, is I don't know if there's anybody else out there that they're going to be able to add if they don't get a Giannis.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't see anybody else out there. I mean, we've already seen a couple of moves being made. I know the Celtics made a move, which kind of worries me a little bit. But I just don't – that's why I really think this is really a Giannis or bust. And what I mean by that, Giannis or bust in terms of any moves by the deadline. And obviously it won't pass by the time where you see this or hear this for the first time. So we'll see. But maybe it's a situation where they look at it again in the offseason. maybe with a Giannis, if they see what happens after this year, and they fall a little bit short, then they realize they maybe need another star player on this team. But we'll find out.
Yeah, well, look, the Knicks have a good roster. They do, and they can come out of the East. But look, I don't think they'd stand a chance against OKC. In fairness, you might be able to say the same thing if they get Giannis. In fairness, but I think they have a better chance.
I think the West is actually deeper this year, so I don't think they match up well against anybody in the West. I really don't.
Well, I think OKC this year is like a super team, and they're the ultimate super team. And then the Spurs and the Nuggets, I think, would probably beat the Knicks. I mean, this year, the Knicks are definitely better than the Lakers. I think the Rockets might be better than the Knicks, but they're a young team. I don't know if that'll translate well in the playoffs. I'm not really I don't like the way the Knicks look if they make the championship, which if they make the finals, which I'm not even convinced is going to happen. But if they do, I don't know how well they match up against any of those teams in the West. I'm just not riding very high on what the Knicks roster looks like right now.
Well, I would like to get to the championship. That's the next step, is to get there.
Look, I'd be pretty happy if we get there. I'm just saying.
Hey, look, we went 20-something years, and this is not a reach to say this. We went about 20-something years as arguably the worst team in sports.
Yeah.
It was that bad. I mean, the only team for a long period of time up until recently, the only team that I felt like was actually worse in sports than the Knicks was the Cleveland Browns. That's how bad it was.
What happened was James Dolan. The funny thing about Dolan is that as the less involved he got with the Knicks and the Rangers, the better the team got. It was better. And I guess he's not a good owner at all, but at least he had the humility to see that. And that ended up making the team better. The Knicks, first it was the Rangers, and then it was the Knicks, that when he backed off, the teams got so much better.
Well, also, the thing with the Rangers was, too, is you want to go back 20 years, the best thing that ever happened for the Rangers was that lockout in 04 and 05, because it forced them to be it forced them to shed a ton of salary and be responsible with their money.
Right.
And they ended up, having a lot of young guys on that team, which was something they weren't like in the late 90s and early 2000s. And obviously, they're going through a rough stretch right now, but then they had a great stretch where they made the playoffs literally almost every year. Yeah. And I think the 1 or 2 years for a 15-year span that they didn't make the playoffs, they were knocked out on the last day of the regular season. So, yeah. So, but look, it's the best stretch we've had as the Knicks. I'm excited. I know there's more work that needs to be done, but look, there's from where we were to where we are now, I can't be any happier.
Look, I remember the 17-win Knicks team with Derek Fisher as the head coach.
Oh, Jeff Hornacek. I mean, I don't want to get sick, so let's not revisit those days. But oh my gosh, I mean, I just got over a bug, and I'm going to get back to being in the doldrums again with that. But yeah, those are the bad old days. I mean, we could spend a whole show talking about the names, and boy, Knicks fans will hear that, and they will get sick, or they'll be throwing things across the room when they hear that.
Yeah. So I want to talk about we didn't even talk about the Super Bowl yet.
Hey, there is a championship happening this week. That's right.
Super Bowl 60. The Seahawks, are 4.5-point favorites. The over-under is 45.5. I'm not going to be on forecast this week, probably, because I never am. But
you get it with your schedule. Trust me. I understand. And we're going to make changes to that show next year. I can already tell you that right now. I'm in the works of working some changes. I won't say what yet, but I'm in the process of changing some stuff for that show next year. So
okay, that's good. That's good news. Yeah. Seattle is favored by 4.5, and if you listen to Unnecessary Wagers, you would know what my pick is. And I don't even know if you're going to even give away your pick.
I can tell you my pick. I mean,
it probably doesn't matter that much, but yes.
Because the line, I'll be honest with you, I'd be shocked if there's any movement with this line or the total. Usually there's Super Bowl, there's no movement. So the opening line that you get is what it's going to stay. I mean, maybe does the total go down by a point? Maybe, and it might depend on how healthy Drake May actually is. But it sounds like from all the stuff so far that it's fine, that there is no issue at all with the shoulder.
Yeah,
what is your pick?
I love Seattle here, -4.5. Love Seattle. Look, I think that the Patriots have played. Look, everybody's talking about the Patriots having an easy path. I don't want to pile on that too much because I think it might be a little overstated. What really matters is that they won those games, and most teams with young quarterbacks like Drake May would not have won all of those games. But it is. I also do want to point out that the Chargers had no offensive line. The Broncos had a backup quarterback, and the Texans, I think, was a legitimate win, an underrated win. Everybody brings up C.J. Stroud. Oh, you played C.J. Stroud. Well, C.J. Stroud played the whole year, and they went 8-5. They beat the Chiefs and the Bills. I mean, like the Texans were a really hot team at one point, and everybody acknowledged it. But now, just to discredit the Patriots, people are like, well, you played C.J. Stroud. It's like, I don't think that's really fair. You can't just switch it like that. But I do think Seattle is, and I guess this is normal for any Super Bowl team, Seattle is another level above all of the teams that the Patriots have beaten throughout the playoffs. The Patriots were able to win three playoff games in a row without much offense. I mean, Drake May threw for 86 yards against the Broncos. I'm not saying he's going to do that against Seattle, but there is no way the Patriots, for a fourth time in a row, are going to be able to win a game without playing any offense. I don't think that's going to happen. It was either entirely with their defense or because the other team's offense was completely inept. In most cases, in all three cases, a little bit of both. There is no way that Sam Darnold is going to play the way Stroud played. And let's not forget, even though the Patriots won that game, Drake May was terrible in that game. The Patriots' offense was terrible in that game. As bad as Stroud was, the Texans were actually in that game until the end. And which says a lot about how the Patriots' offense played in that game. And if the Patriots' offense looks anything like it did in these past 3 weeks, I really just don't think they have much of a chance to win this game. Seattle is Seattle's not just a talented team. I think they seem like a well-balanced team. The Rams, the way I see the Rams is that I think they were a very good team, but they're not a very well-balanced team. They're built as a very pass-heavy offense. Even if they're playing from ahead, it's as if they're playing from behind. Seattle, I think, is I think Seattle is a little more balanced. I think Seattle, they're not a team that runs up the score a lot. They're a team that I think is a little more strategic in a lot of ways, or not strategic. That's not the right way to put it, but more well-balanced than most other teams. And I think that the Patriots on offense are going to have to do so much more because this offense is on a whole nother level than the offenses that the Patriots played. I mean, the Chargers had no offensive line. C.J. Stroud was probably, I don't even know if he was a top 20 quarterback this year. And Jarrett Stidham's a backup. This is just another level.
I agree. Long story short, see, I'm trying not to really overthink this because it seems like in the Super Bowl you can overthink a pick, and especially because it does look like a little bit of a bloated number, 4.5 points. That's why I wasn't touching the Patriot spread in the AFC Championship because that number did look a little bloated. And this one does a little bit too because usually Super Bowls, I don't remember the last time we had a Super Bowl that the favorite was this big of a favorite. Usually the Super Bowl's favorites are between 2 and 2.5. But yeah, the way that I could see the Patriots keeping this close, and the reason why it'd be tempting to take the Patriots to cover the number would be their defense. But I don't know if that defense is going to be able to do enough against the Seahawks offensive line that's got some stud guys like Charles Cross and stuff. I think the way the Pats could make this an interesting game is if somehow they get a turnover, whether that's an interception of Darnold or they recover a fumble somewhere and they get a short field. But I just don't see them being able to pressure Darnold enough. And like you said, Drake May really has not been that great in the playoffs. I mean, he had an unbelievable throw to Boutte in the divisional round. He did have some very good runs against the the Broncos, but that was his legs, not really his arm in the AFC Championship. But the Pats defense is the reason why you could give them a chance to make this game interesting. But I just don't know if they can do it against the Seahawks, it does look like the Seahawks are the most complete team. And as for much as we can say, well, what if Sam Darnold has a struggle? We keep waiting for it. It just hasn't happened. Yeah. And it's also because he's got a very favorable team. He's got Jackson Smith, the Jigma receiver. I mean, who could easily be a case for MVP if the Seahawks win this game. I mean, I actually, when we talked about this on Friday, he is my MVP. I'm going to go with JSN.
I would not go with JSN. Here's why. If whatever JSN does in the game, like whatever he does, Darnold will get just as much credit for it. Like if he has whatever touchdown he scores, people are going to say, well, Darnold threw this touchdown. Like I feel like the only way that happens would be if every other receiver is just terrible. And JSN was like the only, but I don't think JSN will win MVP.
It's always tempting to go with the quarterback. I mean, maybe the only other guy that's not Sam Darnold that you could say could win MVP could be Kenneth Walker.
Yeah. I think there's a greater likelihood of Walker winning than JSN because whatever Walker does, you can't really if he just whatever Walker does would not be credited to Darnold the way it would with JSN.
That's fair. So yeah, I'll double check that. Yeah, but maybe Walker and also if they're going to double team or triple team even because I might take a triple team to stop JSN. Then he's got Cooper Kupp and he's got his tight end who I can't think of his name right now, Barner, who's been outstanding too. But like I'm just saying, though, there's just more pieces to me on the Seahawks, and the only way I can see the Patriots making this is if they can get some short fields, and I just don't know they could do it against this Seahawk offensive line. So while it does seem tempting to take the Patriots to at least keep it close, I also just don't see it. So I would take the Seahawks, and Super Bowls are usually not high scoring. I know obviously last year was an exception, but we also know that the Patriots don't score early in these games either. Like I think every Super Bowl, I think they have not had a touchdown in the first quarter in the Super Bowl. So total's tough because you can even see the Seahawks winning, putting up 30 plus, and maybe the Patriots scoring 17. I feel more tempted to go under, but this is actually more of a situation where I actually like the spread more. So, and even though that is tempting to go the other way, yes, I would take the Seahawks to cover the number.
I'm going with the under in this game.
Yeah.
Because here's why. If the Patriots games, like you just said, like they never score in the first quarter, if the Patriots games go the way that they usually do, which is not much offense, or not usually, but like in the playoffs at least, not much offense, and Seattle is playing from ahead, I think Seattle will not run up the score. They're not a team that like runs up the score very much. Now, I know you might say, well, they put up 41 against the Niners. But even when they put up 41 against the Niners, I don't think they were trying to run up the score. It's just that the Niners defense was so bad they couldn't stop the run. Darnold only threw the ball 17 times. If you're trying to run up the score, you're not throwing the ball 17 times. So they're not really and the Patriots, I mean, the Niners defense was so unbelievably injured. The Patriots defense is much better. So I don't think the Seahawks are going to run up the score. It sounds contradictory because I'm picking them to cover, but I don't think they're going to run up the score to the point where this will be an over game. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there will be a limited amount of scoring. And if Seattle is playing from ahead, which I think they will, I really anticipate that they will, I don't think they'll be throwing the ball. They'll be running up the score a lot. Most of these Patriots games have really been low scoring. Seattle, they can play a low scoring game or a high scoring game. Like against the Rams, that was a high scoring game. But they can also play against a team like the Patriots and play like a low scoring game. Like they can kind of play any of those games. So that's why I think this game will be low scoring.
Yeah, and when the Patriots did score 28 against the Texans, a lot of that was because of their defense. Why they were able to get to the 28 points, and that's that would be the only reason why I could see the Patriots keeping it inside that number. But I just don't think that this is not how C.J. Stroud was playing. This is a much more complete team.
Yeah.
than what he had. So yeah, I agree. I do like the Seahawks to cover and win Super Bowl 60 there in Santa Clara on Sunday night.
Yeah. You know what's crazy is that if I had told you 5 years ago that of all the quarterbacks drafted in 2018, Darnold would be the first to win a Super Bowl, like that would be completely crazy.
Yes. Yeah, because 5 years. Yeah, because I didn't jump aboard this network until just after that, and he was obviously with the Jets, and then he went to the Panthers, and he actually did all right with the Panthers for a while there. But yeah, no, I would not have had that on my as a bet that he would be the first guy to not only to win a game, win the big game. No.
Yeah. Well, but here's the other funny thing. If I had told you that in 2018, before he was drafted, or 2017, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah, because and he ended up being second overall. What was it? Second overall? Second or third overall?
Third overall.
Yeah. Third overall.
And then, but you think
it was Wilson that was second. Yeah.
Yeah, but you'd think no. It was Saquon who was second.
No. I'm talking about. I'm thinking with Jet quarterbacks, Zach Wilson was second.
Yeah. Oh, right. Zach Wilson was number 2 pick.
But that's right. But Darnold was third.
But I was thinking, but if you were to say that, you'd think, oh, it would be with the Jets.
Yeah, because you wouldn't think that he'd give up. They would get rid of him. Well, yeah, you would think he'd still be with the Jets. Yes, that whole draft class, by the way, has just been crazy. I mean, you almost have a 30 for 30 just on that draft class with all the changes they've had in just 5 years.
Well, the Browns passed on Josh Allen twice in that draft. Josh Rosen was picked before Lamar Jackson, like 20 picks before Lamar Jackson. Imagine that.
I remember the Giants could have had both Josh Allens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quarterback and the defensive end.
Yes, the defensive end. Yes. He was also in that same exact draft class. Yeah. Can we talk about this for a second? Super Bowl prop bets.
Oh, yes.
On Poly Market.
By the way, did you see the number that they're projecting in terms of how much is going to be bet on this game?
I don't know.
I saw a stat. I think it was from AMA or something. 1.76 billion.
Wow.
Not surprised though when you look at all the gambling sites and whatnot, and all the kind of bets that you can have. Between first score. I mean, God, we'll talk about this more on Friday. But oh my gosh, it was just what is promoted. It just boggles the mind.
That's bigger than some countries' GDPs.
Oh, You're right. You're right. It's just it's funny and sad at the same time.
But all right, so here's some. I'm not really big into Poly Market. I just kind of learned.
Find me a couple, because I'm usually pretty good at.
It's a prediction. All right, can you guess? Do you know how Poly Market works?
Not really. I mean, the only thing I really know is I know one of their spokespeople talks about it, but I don't know the full details.
Well, the way it works, it's a prediction market, so it's not like DraftKings that works on.
Is it like Kalshi?
Yes. Okay. Basically, it's all percentages.
Yes. So, okay. Yep.
So in order to win, so if you buy Darnold is at 44% to win MVP. And if you buy it for $1, you win $2.27. So that's kind of just how it works. It's all like basically just odds. Like it's not like spreads, picks against the spread, really. So the exact outcome, Seahawks are 69%, Patriots 32%. But all right, these are all those are normal. The ones that I think are interesting are wait a second. Who will perform at the 2026 halftime show? Bad Bunny is at 99%, so basically you can win nothing off of.
Yeah.
You can't, because he's obviously the performer.
Unless there was somebody came along with him, but
right. That's what this is really about. Do you know who's right below Bad Bunny?
No.
In the odds, Cardi B at 65%. So if I bet $1 on Cardi B to make an appearance, I win $1.54.
It's not really a good value though for
no. It's not, but I think Cardi B will almost certainly be there.
Probably, yeah. I'm being honest.
Her
I'm
husband's
not going to watch
playing
the
in the
halftime
Super
show.
Bowl, and she has a song with Bad Bunny, probably multiple songs
Yeah,
with Bad Bunny.
that I can see that. I will be honest with you. I will not watch the halftime show. Just I don't know about Bad Bunny, and that's just not my kind of music. It was the same thing last year. I might go put on one of my bands, an old old video of my bands down here in South Carolina, and have them play for a half hour versus that.
You know who? So there, you could actually bet on Billie Eilish at $6.8 to win 1472. That's basically
so like two and a half, almost a 2 to 1, a little over 2 to 1.
6%. No, way more than that. $6.08 to win. To bet $1 to win. No, $1 to win $14.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's different then. Okay.
I wouldn't take that bet. There's no way she'll be there. You know what name I think would be interesting would be Fetty Wap, now that he just got out of prison.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
I mean, not that he would do any songs with Bad Bunny. That wouldn't even make sense, but that would be an interesting one. There's some other prop bets, which I actually think are not just the halftime show, which I think are really, really funny. Well, one of them is actually how many viewers will it have? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to bet on that because that's not something I could ever find in the moment. But
I mean,
that you would ever
how
find.
How can they figure that out? Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. That's one of the biggest reasons I wouldn't bet it. One of them is, what will be said. This is funny. This is a good one. Legendary is at 74%. Knee injury at 44%. But here are some of the best ones, okay? Here's some of the best ones.
So this is said what, during the game or
during the game? So not during a commercial. I think it means during the broadcast.
Oh, so right, because this is a Tirico Collinsworth special.
Yeah.
This is Collinsworth's like 5th Super Bowl, I believe, involving the Patriots. So yes.
Yeah. Mahomes is 69%.
Yeah, I like that.
That's to it's $1, I think, to pay out. Because you're not really winning if you're betting $1. It's just $1 to win 18 cents. It's not really much. That's at 69%. Touchback is at 76%, which, yeah, you almost
have to consider that because
but here's some good ones. Wait. Now here's a guy is at 50%. You gotta bet the now here's a guy.
Yes.
How is that not 100%?
Hey, take those odds while you can before it changes.
And the other is Ann Michael May at 41%.
Okay, yeah.
That's Drake May's wife.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably pan to her, so they have to imagine that, yes.
I think a lot of it depends on how well he's playing, but...
Start of the game. That's when you have to get it.
Ann Michael May sounds like the name of like an old president's wife.
Yeah.
But no, I follow her on TikTok. She's a really, really good creator. And I only follow her for the comments because the comments are just amazing.
That's good.
The other thing that will it be mentioned or not is Bakemas at 43%. I would not bet on that because I'm betting on the Patriots to not cover the spread. The more likely, the way I would say it is that Ann Michael May or Bakemas being mentioned is lower if it's if the Patriots aren't playing as well. The other thing that would another thing that might be mentioned is ICE/Border Patrol at 71%. I guess that includes the halftime show because there's no way the broadcast.
It would have to be in the halftime show, yes.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no way the numbers would be that high.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I just think all this stuff is really fun.
Those are different than the normal traditional ones, or like the Gatorade color, or the commercials, or
they have that too.
Oh, I'm sure, but you went outside the box. We'll talk about those on Friday. And by the way, you always take the over on the anthem. On the what? On the anthem.
Oh, right.
Because you didn't take it with Martina McBride because she's original and legendary, but the way these are now, you always take the over on that.
Yeah. All right. So, any more plugs we got to do?
Well, yeah. So let me just mention here as we wrap up the show this week. Let me talk to you about our Super Bowl coverage here on the ETB network because we have a ton of it. Obviously, with me and the guys on Friday, we will do football forecast live on Friday at 6:30. Note the start time 6:30 Eastern on Friday. So that is good. That right now is planning to be an all Super Bowl show, unless there's any other breaking news that happens between now and the show. We plan to do all Super Bowl stuff. So we'll do an opening statement on the game from all of us. We'll talk about the advantages. We'll talk about the prop bets, obviously, what to watch for and all that stuff. And obviously, we'll all make our Super Bowl pick on the show there. Now, that's on Friday. On Saturday, you've got Gridiron Gridlock, which I believe is with Trevor and Christy at 6 p.m. And then you've got the ETB Lounge at 9 p.m. Saturday night to talk about that. And then Super Bowl Sunday, Zan Zingers and Gridiron Gurus will join forces for 2 hours starting at 11 a.m. Press row with Morgeson and Callan at 4 p.m. And then there's planning to be some post-game coverage following the game with obviously Ben, who's our Patriots fan. He will be there. I'm sure they're planning to do some stuff. So stick around for that. Unfortunately, I will not be able to take part in any of that this weekend. I will be there on Friday, obviously, for the game, for the forecast. But unfortunately, between work and other stuff, I will not be there. But tune in for those guys. They'll do a great job, especially Nick D on Saturday night. And then we will come back here next week, Nick D, on Show 101, wrap it up, and start making that transition into some other sports. Hey, we'll have the Olympics next week.
Yeah. You want to talk about that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You and I can talk about curling. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. See you guys then. That's our
we'll
show
see you next week. Enjoy the game, everybody. We'll catch you next week for episode 101.
See ya.